A waiter stood up for a biker against rude customers and got fired. An hour later, 100 bikers arrived. Let's dive to see what happens when you fire someone for showing kindness. What happens when one man stands up against the crowd, when he chooses courage over fear, even if it costs him everything? It was a quiet Friday afternoon at Joe's Diner, a small place tucked away in the heart of Maplewood. The diner wasn't fancy. It had worn-out booths with cracked vinyl seats and an old jukebox that played songs from decades ago. But it was homey, the kind of spot where regulars felt like family. The main character here is Samson Reed, a waiter who worked at Joe's Diner for 5 years. He wasn't just any waiter. He was the kind of guy who remembered your coffee order before you did. His voice carried warmth, and his laugh could light up even the dullest day. At 32, Samson had seen enough ups and downs to know life wasn't always fair, but he still believed in doing what was right. That day started out normal enough. A few customers sipped their coffees while chatting about the weather or the latest football game. Then came the biker. His name was Marcus Kane, tall and broad-shouldered, with leather jacket sleeves worn thin from years on the road. His boots scuffed the floor as he walked in, and every head turned to stare. Some whispered behind their hands, others shifted uncomfortably. Marcus didn't seem to notice, or maybe he didn't care. He slid into a booth near the back and waited patiently. Samson approached him first, smiling as usual. "What can I get you today?" Marcus looked up, his eyes meeting Samson's. There was something raw in those eyes, like they'd seen too much of the world already. "Just a cup of black coffee," he said quietly. No attitude, no arrogance, just simple words. But then the trouble began. A group of men sitting by the counter started murmuring under their breath. One spoke louder than the rest. "You think this guy's gonna pay for his meal? Probably steal half the silverware while he's at it." Another chimed in, laughing. "Yeah, these types are all the same. Nothing but trouble." Samson froze mid-step, hearing the judgment in their voices. It made his stomach twist. He glanced back at Marcus, whose jaw tightened slightly, but said nothing. That silence only fueled the jeers from the other side of the room. "Hey," Samson called out, stepping closer to the group. His tone was firm, steady, leaving no room for argument. "Leave him alone. He hasn't done anything wrong." One of the men stood up, leaning across the counter. "Mind your business, kid. We're just saying what everyone's thinking." Samson shook his head, standing taller now. "No, you're not. You don't know him. You don't know what kind of person he is, and if you want to judge someone, do it based on how they act, not how they look." For a moment, there was silence. Then the man sneered. "Fine. Let's see if Mr. Tough Guy pays his tab when it comes time." Samson returned to Marcus, placing the coffee down gently. "Ignore them," he said softly. "They don't matter." Marcus nodded, taking a sip of his drink. "Thanks." Just 2 words, but they carried weight. Unfortunately, the drama didn't end there. Word reached Harold, the owner of the diner, who stormed out of the kitchen with red cheeks and flaring nostrils. "Samson, what's going on here?" he barked. "They were picking on the customer," Samson explained calmly, though his heart raced. "I told them to stop." Harold glared at him. "This isn't about being nice. This is about keeping my business running smoothly. If you alienate paying customers, we both lose. You're fired." The words hit Samson like a punch to the gut. For a second, he couldn't breathe. Fired for standing up for someone else? But he swallowed hard and nodded. "Okay," he said simply, "but I stand by what I did." He grabbed his coat and walked out without another word, leaving Marcus watching him go. Outside, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the parking lot. Samson leaned against the brick wall of the building, trying to process what had just happened. Losing his job wasn't easy, especially since rent was due next week. Yet, deep down, he knew he'd made the right choice. As he sat there, replaying the scene in his mind, a motorcycle roared to life nearby. Looking up, Samson saw Marcus pulling out of the lot. Their eyes met briefly through the visor of Marcus's helmet. Then the bike disappeared around the corner. Minutes passed. Hours felt like minutes. Samson debated whether to head home or find a new place to eat dinner. Before he could decide, though, the sound of engines filled the air. At first it was distant, a low rumble growing louder by the second. Then out of nowhere, bikes poured into the parking lot. Dozens of them, maybe more. Each rider dismounted and removed their helmet, revealing faces etched with determination. Leading the pack was Marcus. Samson blinked, stunned. What's happening? Marcus stepped forward, his voice carrying authority despite its calmness. We heard what happened, about you losing your job because you stood up for me. Another man added, none of us like seeing good people treated unfairly, so we decided to show our support. Before Samson could respond, the bikers filed into the diner, filling every seat available. They ordered food, drinks, desserts, everything on the menu. Within minutes, the once empty diner buzzed with energy. Even Harold, peeking out from the kitchen, seemed surprised. Marcus handed Samson an envelope. Inside was cash, more than enough to cover Samson's lost wages and then some. Consider it a thank you, Marcus said, for believing in someone when others wouldn't. Tears pricked at the corners of Samson's eyes. He clenched the envelope tightly, overwhelmed by the gesture. Thank you, he whispered. I didn't expect this. Marcus smiled faintly. Life's tough sometimes, but so are people like you. By the end of the night, news spread throughout Maplewood about the incident. Strangers stopped Samson on the street to shake his hand or offer words of encouragement. Harold eventually apologized, offering Samson his job back, but Samson declined. Something inside him had shifted. He realized he didn't need to settle for less anymore. Instead, he opened his own cafe, inspired by the kindness shown to him that day. Years later, as Samson served customers in his bustling establishment, he often thought about Marcus and the lesson learned. True strength lies not in fitting in, but in standing up, for yourself and for others. And sometimes, all it takes is one act of bravery to change the course of a life forever. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. If you'd like to show some extra love, tap the 3 dots near the share button and send a super thanks.